All right, high rollers, he's back. Our UFC and MMA guru back to talk about that stack card, top to bottom, at UFC 214. Jones versus Cormier. Some great matchups, some great fights, and here to break it all down for us is Michael Mahar at Michael Marbled on Twitter. Michael, welcome back to the show, man. Thanks for being our high roller today.
Pleasure to be back. Thanks for having me again.
UFC 214, baby. Much anticipated rematch between DC and Johnny Bones Jones. Who is the real champion? There was lots of hype there. Let's start there. That was a pretty good fight. I thought Cormier looked pretty good, but the head kick got him. I mean, it was a good fight, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a fantastic fight. I was enjoying it far more than the previous fight up until the finish. Even can't lie. I was cheering for Cormier, so I was a little disappointed there, but I was absolutely not disappointed in the fight. The fight itself lived up to everything I was hoping it would be in terms of a competition.
I mean, he looks impressive. He's been off for a while, John Jones, but he comes back. He's got the shaved head. I mean, he looks imposing. He's so tall, so lengthy, and it was tough for Cormier to get inside. He did so a few times, but it looked like John Jones was setting him up, and he was doing those low kicks to the knees and really hyperextending the leg, and then all of a sudden, boom, he wasn't going low. He went high and got him.
Yeah, he definitely brought the high kick out from basically nowhere. He'd been, trying to look to capitalize from what I can tell from the post-interview stuff that he did, it was something that he was looking for, but he didn't really want to go to it ahead of time.
And it's impressive for John Jones, too, because, in the past, he's not really known as a KO specialist. I mean, his fights usually go the distance. A few haven't, but this one, he really finished the job and in a hurry, too. Cormier, he was out of it. He complained afterwards. I don't think he was in his right mind, but he thought it was stopped too early. Obviously, some say it might have went a few punches too long. What was your take on how it ended?
I mean, in the moment, I thought it was just the right time. Like, it's the highest level. Let the guys compete a little bit longer. If there's ever a time and place where you might want maybe a guy to have an opportunity to eat one or two extra shots, this is it. I mean, if it was a couple of guys, in the top 15, nowhere near a title shot, not a big deal to stop it a little bit early to try and protect the fighter. In real time, it seemed legit. In the replay, yeah, it seems like maybe about two shots late, but you can't know that until you get to that second shot. So I thought it was the right call at the time by Big John.
Yeah, I got no problems with Big John McCarthy. Love it when he's in the ring. Always seems to make the right call. And again, for a while there, I mean, DC was trying to defend himself, and it was just too much and too quick by John Jones. What do you think about this new and improved Mr. John Jones? I mean, he comes back. He says all the right things after the fight. He was very gracious in victory, complimented DC. That's a pretty good look for him, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought he handled it about as well as he could. Historically speaking, I've not been particularly fond of listening to John Jones interviews or promo clips, but I mean, I thought I got nothing but respect for how he handled it.
And then he grabs the mic and calls out Brock Lesnar. What are your thoughts about that potential? I mean, that would be a super fight right there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is fairly clear cut in terms of John Jones recognizing the work that McGregor and Mayweather have done in the past. He's looking at, okay, right now, what's the biggest fight I can try and make and win, obviously, because John's very conscious of wanting to have things that are favorable for him, which totally respectable, but he's much more open about it. So I think it's a good matchup for him. Certainly, it's not necessarily an easy win, but it's a good matchup. Not to mention, it's the biggest fight that he can ask for. It brings in the biggest amount of casual fans, the biggest amount of fans that he doesn't necessarily have access to, and they make lots of money.
Yeah, no kidding. I found it interesting that he was asked about Stipe Miocic, and he says, no, that guy's too big, and he wants to fight Brock Lesnar. I mean, wow, that guy's just humongous. Okay, real quick, I want your thoughts on the Joe Rogan interview of DC Cormier at the end of the fight there after he had been knocked out. That's a tough situation. I mean, you want to hear from the challenger, but after he gets brutalized like that, maybe it's not the right time. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Rogan seemed to be apprehensive about doing it. Even in the moment, you could tell it seemed a little bit awkward, and he apologized then. He also apologized the next day on I believe, all of his social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. He just clearly, Cormier was not in his right sorts when he thought the fight was stopped early, because he just been concussed basically, and was struggling to be a stand-up guy, which it seems like he is all the time. And how he was sort of like wasn't accepting Big John's when he was going to announce the winner. He didn't necessarily want to be there, so to speak. But DC also apologized about his behavior then. He knows that wasn't the case now.
Well, I hope he continues fighting, keeps pushing for that title shot. He's only got 2 losses, and both of them are to Jon Jones. By the way, real quick, Jones v. Lesnar, have you got early thoughts on who might win that fight?
I would probably favor Jones. Yeah. I believe he's the favorite in the betting lines, but just looking at the skill set that he has to work with, the coaching staff he has to work with, he's got the oldest Lesnar that, realistically speaking, this isn't happening until at least next summer. So he's going to have the oldest Lesnar, and he's still just hitting his prime. I would favor him, but it certainly would not be an easy fight.
Yeah, no kidding. Jon Jones in his prime is one scary animal inside the octagon. Okay, so that capped off an exciting night of fights. It was a great main event. Let's run down the main card, the co-main event, Tyron Woodley versus Demian Maia. And you talked about pulling for DC. I was pulling for Demian Maia big time. And when it was evident that he couldn't get the takedown, I was like, throw that left, kick him, throw that left, get him. Because he was landing that left a few times, wasn't he?
Yeah, here and there. But, I mean, Maia's really one of the best examples of a successful specialist. At this point, he's definitely I think the best grappler to ever do it in the sport, and he's done a fantastic job of adapting his style in the wake of losing to Anderson Silva and trying to reinvent himself. That being said, I thought this was the worst matchup for him. If somebody else was the champion, I think he would have had a better chance coming into it. But Woodley had all the skills to provide all the answers in a very disciplined game plan. Not an exciting fight because Demian Maia can't do what he's doing and doesn't have the skills to threaten with other things against Woodley. But, I mean, not the most fan-friendly fight by any stretch.
Yeah, no kidding. The dilemma is that if Woodley makes one mistake and Maia gets the back, it's all over. He's that good. So I cannot blame Tyron Woodley for his game plan, his discipline. I mean, he's fighting to win. He's fighting to stay champion. He's fighting for his family and the money. So I understand that. But when you look at the guy, he's like a beast, and you just expect some flashy knockouts and all kinds of crazy stuff, showing off his skills and his abilities. I can understand the fans' point of view too. They sort of want a knock 'em sock 'em affair,
Yeah, I think it's a tough spot. Like, looking back now, people remember GSP very fondly that he's been out of the spotlight for a couple of years, but you look back to during his reign is very similar to Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley's arguably using GSP's formula, denying people their game and applying his own, but sometimes he's going to run into people that are so good that it's, doing what, is best for him to win is a very anticlimactic affair. Look at Jake Shields versus GSP, a very similar scenario. A ground wizard against a fantastic all-rounder, and it looked pretty dull on the feet.
Yeah, the bottom line is the win is paramount. That's what Tyron's gunning for. He says he's a better version of GSP, and he's not surprised that apple that was dangled out there, the carrot dangled of GSP fight, did not come to fruition. It looks like Dana White wasn't happy with the Woodley performance, and the Bisping GSP fight is back on. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm not in love with that fight per se. I also don't hate it. I mean, it is something that they had committed to previously. I don't think it's a bad, I'm not going to be upset with it. I want to see Bisping, potentially get an opportunity to have a fight that big because he's earned it, I believe. But it is a little bit of a tricky spot. Woodley says that if GSP doesn't fight him, he's the default best ever welterweight. I'm not concerned with trying to say who's best or whatnot, but I can't argue with Woodley's argument that he's basically using the same formula and he's beating guys that arguably have accomplished more than some of the guys that he fought at the time.
Right, he's got a very good case, and I'll tell you what, if that fight does happen, GSP versus Bisping, I will be watching it for sure. Okay, Chris Cyborg, she takes on Tanya Evinger. This was heavily one-sided fight when it went to the bookies. Cyborg, the big favorite. Evinger put in a pretty good performance. She's a tough gal. She hung in there for 3 rounds. I mean, that was an interesting tilt to watch in my mind.
Oh, for sure. Look, Tanya Evinger is without question one of the better fighters that Cyborg has faced, without a doubt. Evinger should have been in the UFC for some time, in my opinion. That being said, she's a 135er and possibly maybe could be even be a 25er, not a 45er, even though she has fought at that in the past. She's been around forever. She's got a well-rounded skill set. That being said, she can't do anything better than Cyborg can do in any area. She's less experienced, less refined, very skilled fighter, very tough fighter. Should be in the UFC. Glad she's finally gotten a chance, and I hope that she gets some better matchups moving forward, because Cyborg is not a good matchup for anyone. Certainly not someone that's 35 only.
Yeah, and I was watching that fight, and I couldn't help but think the entire time that, hey, give it to Evinger. She's in there. She's putting on a good performance. She's got a lot of guts. Ronda Rousey did not want to fight Cyborg. I think Holly Holm refused to fight her at one point. I mean, nobody wants to fight Cyborg, and there she was. Cyborg, you talk about discipline. She didn't go for the kill right away. She played it safe, picked her spots, and eventually finished the job.
Yeah, she was just putting in work and knew that eventually the finish would come.
Yeah, so that was, I enjoyed that fight. Robbie Lawler, Donald Cerrone could have been the main event on any pay-per-view card, and here it is, the second fight to lead the night off. This had a lot of hype. These two have been supposed to go at it a long time ago, but here they are, and it was a good fight. They went toe-to-toe. Very close affair, too.
Yeah, outstanding. I was definitely disappointed that it was a 3-round fight instead of a 5-round fight. Obviously, logistics don't really work to have every fight be a 5-round fight in the UFC on every card, since it's rare. I don't remember the last time we had 3 title fights on a card.
Yeah, I mean, it was stacked top to bottom. I couldn't believe these guys were so early in the card, but what a way to get the night going. We're going to talk about Volkan in a second, but Robbie Lawler, Donald Cerrone, fight number 2. I mean, yes, let's get this one going.
Yeah, it was really entertaining. First round was just blitzkrieg from Robbie. He was definitely a little slower, and Cerrone definitely took the second. I thought it was 1-1 going into the third. I thought it was pretty close in the third round for the most part, although there was kind of a bit of an eye poke towards the end of it where the action didn't stop. They just kind of ran it through the last 15 seconds of the fight, I believe. And I thought up until that point it was pretty even, and it's possible that the backing up that Cerrone did in the last 15 seconds might have lost him the fight in some eyes. I don't think 29-28 for either guy would have been a robbery by any stretch, but
Cerrone
it was close.
Yeah, it was close, and Cerrone resigned that sheepish smile when he realized that he did not win the fight. Big fight, because the winner obviously sets himself up for a fight against Woodley in the championship.
Yeah, well, most likely. The direction things were going, if it wasn't going to be GSP versus the winner of this fight is certainly one of the fan favorites, just in terms of the fighting style.
Yeah, I love both these guys. I love Cerrone. I can't not like Robbie Lawler. I mean, he just puts it on the line every single fight. He's just swinging for the fences, taking a lot of shots. It's always a good toe-to-toe tilt when Robbie Lawler's in there. Okay, to kick the night off, we had Volkan versus Jimmy Manawa. This guy, Volkan, points to the imaginary watch. It's the only tweet I sent out all night, a picture of him, and I said, is this guy's nickname really No Time? I mean, that was an amazing performance by him.
Volkan continues to astound, new viewers. Like we've seen I believe 3 fights now in the UFC, and we still barely know anything about him aside from when he touches people, they fall down immediately.
He said something like, I don't know what's in these hands, but it's like there's dynamite in there or something like that. I think that was his quote.
Yeah, I believe he's Swiss. I don't know how good his English is, but I'm not gonna try and correct him.
Well, I just love it. He seems like a character too. He's pointing to his watch, no time, and I mean, he got, what was it, a left hook, just got it on the chin, and that was it.
Yeah, I was shocked in his last fight when he beat, I believe it was Misha Cirkunov, and I was really surprised at how quickly Cirkunov went down from some of these short shots, and it was the same thing again. He got in the clinch, and it almost reminded me of Shane Carwin, Frank Mir in terms of how violent the clinch was, but he is the one in the back.
Yeah, he was
Even,
against the
Jimmy
fence.
Mata was driving him against the fence, and he puts the guy on the ground almost. A super nasty. Looking forward to seeing more from him, whether it be fighting someone else. I know he's called out Alexander Gustafsson, who's probably the biggest name in 205 in terms of who's next for John Jones. But Ozdemir seems to be on a collision course with a championship fight.
Yeah,
Sure.
and you talk about one way to rise the ranks. That's what he's done. He's come in, he's made a name for himself, packed a lot of power. You mentioned it, 3 fights out of nowhere. This guy is setting himself up for a title shot. By the way, the nickname No Time is apt because he finished this fight, and Jimmy Manawa's no slouch. He finished this fight 22 seconds into the first round. Wow. All right, we're running out of time, but the undercard was pretty stacked too. We had Ricardo Lamas against Jason Knight. We had Aljamain Sterling versus Renan Barão, the former champion, and of course Brian Ortega versus Renato. That was the fight of the night.
Yeah, Ortega, I believe Moicano, if I'm not saying that up too badly.
Moicano,
that fight was incredible. Both guys are super dangerous on the ground, and because of that, they have it's almost like they wanted to go to the ground, so they get so close. These guys were fighting basically hip to hip right in front of each other for 3 rounds. It's crazy. Ortega, allegedly, they were planning on Moicano trying to be a bit of a point fighter in that try and be competitive during the round, but then maybe do something to seal the deal at the end, oftentimes being a takedown, and Ortega definitely seemed ready for it. As soon as Moicano took him down, he was locking up that choke immediately, and Tap was quick too.
Yeah, and you wonder why he didn't do that earlier. I mean, he just slugged it out for 3 solid rounds. It was a great fight. What did you think about Renan Barão losing, the former champion? I mean, that's how quick MMA can pass you by, right? I mean, a few short years ago, he was, undefeated in a decade or something.
Yeah, he had a fantastic run, and look, it's not like he's looked awful in his last couple of fights. He's had some rough matchups. I think he, was still trying to work on his weight management, hence the 140-pound catch weight instead of the fight being at 135 where it was originally set up. But I don't think his career is by any stretch, in too dire condition yet.
All right, okay, and the main event of the undercard was the veteran Ricardo Lamas taking on Jason Knight, who put in a stellar performance, very gutsy indeed. But this Ricardo Lamas, man, you don't mess with the veterans.
Yeah, you had your classic young gun against old lion, just trying to hold on to his ranking. He's lost to the former champion and the current champion, so he's in a tough spot at number 3, but you're going to have to come take it from him.
All in all, a great card. You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I was very, very satisfied with how big of an event this felt like for the summer card.
Yeah, and the results certainly set up some great fights in the future. I can't wait to see that Jones-Lesnar fight if it actually happens. All right, Michael, thank you so much for your time. Michael Mahar, our UFC and MMA guru. He's at Michael Marbled on Twitter. Michael, thanks, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me again.